Hey guys, it's Brittany with Find Your Fierce Coaching, and I am coming to you tonight with our first installment of the Relationship Goals series. Basically, this series, I just want to break down some things that Travis and I have learned over the long time we've been together. A lot of you know that we haven't always just had like a straight, easy path of, dating, engagement, marriage, just straight line. So I thought it would be really cool to be able to just kind of share some of the things that we've gone through together and hopefully give you guys some tips that will be helpful. So tonight I want to talk about the love language because I feel like it's a real basis for a good, strong relationship. And if you are male on this and you think I'm crazy, I'm used to that response, I guess. If you propose this to your significant other who's a guy and he's like, no, that was Travis's response for a really long time. He refused to read this book with me. But it's called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's a really great book. It's a quick read. It's not very long, like less than 200 pages. He does actually have a follow-up book also called Now You're Speaking My Language. And this is kind of once you know what your love language is, kind of going a little deeper. But really just kind of wanted to give a little bit of premise on where this series is coming from and getting some foundation work done. And even though it seems like a silly thing to worry about figuring out your love language, I just kind of want to touch on how important it actually is to figure this out. So if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that Travis and I have definitely been down like a really rough path. We've been through a lot of stuff that most people don't go through in a lifetime together. Moving, we've been together moving, through moves, long distance relationship, some infidelity, breaking up, getting back together, and then kind of figuring out that we want to be together long term. And so then obviously engagement, and hopefully this year we'll be getting married. But I mean, the whole reason I wanted to bring this series to you guys is because like I said, we've been through things that most people don't go through in their entire relationship. And a lot of, I was pretty open about what was going on in our journey as it was happening. But at the time, a lot of my messages were maybe given in like anger or hate. It was not pretty, I can promise you that, okay? It was really, really tough for us. But one of the things that we learned that was really important for us is when we actually did sit down and read the 5 Love Languages book. Honestly, I know I talk about personal development all the time. There is seriously a book for everything. But I actually picked this up on a recommendation of a friend who said, maybe you and Charles are having problems because you aren't communicating to each other in a way that's filling each other's cups. And I was like, no, we communicate. I'm definitely not somebody who doesn't communicate. And it was, at first kind of, I was just blew it off, right? Like, whatever. But then, when I started reading it, I was like, Travis, you've got to read this with me. Like, this is crucial, because I was realizing that finding the love language was the missing key, because I am a notorious gift giver. Recently this year, we, for last Christmas, we did not do Christmas gifts. It was like the worst Christmas ever. I hate not giving gifts. Like, it makes me feel good to give other people gifts. But that's not the love language that Travis receives love in. So even though I was giving it an honest effort, like really, I pick up little things here or there, or get a card and, try to write a nice message in it and give it to him, and I would be so proud. He was like, can you stop wasting money on stuff we don't need? And I'm like, oh, man, that sucks because I love it. But I realized, honestly, after reading this book and finally getting Travis to read, we realized that it just wasn't, it wasn't that I was doing anything wrong or that he was doing anything wrong. He was pretty spot on with what he thought my love language was, but I don't think he really knew how to communicate in that love language very well. And even though I like to give gifts, that's not how I feel love. And so one of the important things to realize is that even if you feel like you're filling up your partner's cup, if that's not the love language that they speak, it doesn't matter how much you keep attempting to spend quality time together or giving them words of affirmation or acts of service or physical touch. It doesn't matter how much you're giving. If that's not the way that your partner speaks, it's all for nothing, honestly. The best analogy I can come up with is like, we were speaking, I'm speaking German, Travis is speaking Japanese, and there was no common way to communicate with each other. He had no idea how to communicate with me. I had no idea how to communicate my love for him. So we were both constantly walking around with cups that were just empty all the time. And it wasn't very much fun to really, feel like I'm giving my best effort and he felt like he was giving his best effort, and we just weren't talking to each other the right way. And honestly, even after you learn your love language or your partner's love language, it doesn't really, it gets easier, but it doesn't really get easier, okay? Like, you still really have to, going back to the verbal language cue, it's like you and your partner are speaking totally different languages. You both try to learn English so that you can communicate with each other, but there's a big part of you that's going to keep defaulting back to your language. And a lot of times how you try to give love or show love is your primary dominant love language. But that's not always the case. It's not the case for me. It's not the case for Travis. But for some people it really is. So you go back to that like, man, I'm showing you love. And in this book, Gary Chapman goes through a ton of different situations. He's a counselor, and so he goes through marriage counselor. He goes through all of these situations with clients and seeing how people are at their wits' end at the end of their marriage. Like, I've done everything I can do. I have bought my wife gifts. I have tried to take her out on dates. I've tried to spice up our intimacy, this and that. But if your wife's love language is acts of service and all she really wants you to do is just take out the trash, like, it doesn't matter that you did all that other stuff. And that's really what he talks about in this book. And it's so important because, like I just said, you can be doing everything that you think you know how to do. You can be speaking the language that you like to hear to your partner, but if they don't, that's not it. Like, you are just wasting your time and you're getting frustrated. So in order to build a good foundation and be able to communicate with each other, and kind of go through some of these other things that we're going to talk about in this series, you have to know how to love your partner. And I don't mean that you don't know how to love. Like, I'm a huge lover, a huge, kind, caring person. But if I'm not talking to Travis in his love language, it doesn't even matter. He can recognize, well, yeah, you'd give the shirt off your back to somebody. But if I'm not speaking to him the way that he needs to be spoken to, then it's not good. Like, I can, go do all these acts of service all week long while he's gone, clean the house, get the laundry done, meal prep, grocery shop so that he can come home and relax. But when he's at home, I'm not on the couch relaxing with him with physical touch, cuddling, things like that, it doesn't matter. All that other stuff goes unnoticed. And for me, when he doesn't notice those things, I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm trying. And we just had this weekend had a conversation like, yeah, I get it, you're trying to do everything, but you're not talking to me the way I need to be talked to. And it's a good reminder, once you learn your love language and your partner's love language, it's important to keep talking. So there's a quiz in the back of here, in the back of this book. It's like 20, 30 questions. And all it is establishing what's something that's more meaningful. Like, for example, it's more meaningful for me when I receive a loving note, text, email for no special reason, or he and I hug. And you write down your letters, and at the end of the test, it tells you what your love language is. So you can be words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, or physical touch. So there's 5, obviously, hence the title of the book. But you can also have, like for me, it's words of affirmation, and a close secondary one is quality time. For Travis, it's quality time, and I think his secondary is physical touch. But now that I'm thinking about it, I can't even tell you a secondary. But I would have thought that there were, other things that would have maybe come before that. And so, okay, I do actually know now that I just said that. So it's quality time and words of affirmation, which is a shock to me because even though I like those things, that's not how I see him, like, what I think he would like. So I'm putting my own kind of like rose-colored glasses on how I think he wants love rather than just giving him what he wants. And we oftentimes do that in a relationship. We think we know what's best for somebody. We think we know a partner. We think we know what somebody's looking for out of a relationship. But I'm going to go back to it over and over again. If you're not giving them what they actually need, you will walk around with a partner with an empty cup. And I'm not saying that what happened between Travis and I was okay. But I know that it was a result of us both walking around with empty cups because we had no idea how to love each other and how to have that love received. And it was uncomfortable at first when we had to kind of figure that out. And it was uncomfortable to go through all the crap that we went through before we realized how important it was. So I just encourage you to check out this book, even if the only thing you do, this is how I got Travis to do it. I made Travis take the test at the end of the book. Then I had read the whole book. I made him take the test at the end of the book to tell me what his love languages were based on his answers to the questions. And then I told him what my love language was after I really read and took the quiz and figured it out. And then I just made him read that chapter because a lot of men aren't big readers. So if you want your significant other to read this and you just don't think they will, there's a little, shortcut way to get it done. But I think it's crucial before you start trying to communicate and, build a trust in a relationship and, figuring out what you need to do to make this work on a more intense level. The first step is you have to know that when you're showing love, that your partner's receiving it. So tomorrow night we are going to talk about communication and technology and how that all kind of plays a role in together. Again, like I said, this is kind of all, I'm no expert in relationships. Some people might even say I don't probably have a very good right to be talking about it because of the road that Travis and I have gone down. But I think that the important thing is that we have a long list of all the ways not to do it. So if I can help you guys narrow it down into some ways that might help you make a relationship a success, because honestly, I don't ever want anyone to go through what we went through together because it's not fun. It's not fun at all. So I will be back tomorrow with the next installment of my series, and I really appreciate everyone that hopped on and shared the video and all that. I do really, really appreciate it. So thanks again.